Welcome back to Ashley Please, the podcast where I explain politics the same way I do in the group chat. I'm Ashley Munson, and every week we'll unpack the headlines, make sense of the nonsense, and explain how government actually works. And at the end of each episode, I'll give out an Ashley Please award to somebody that collectively made us say, girl, what are you doing? This is part civics class, part podcast, and fully unhinged. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Ashley Please, part civics class, part podcast, and fully unhinged. Hey, y'all, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, and watching. If you haven't had the opportunity, go over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube to subscribe. Do it right now. I want to say this too. I really enjoy when I run into people that say they listen to this podcast. Now, I've had people that have said, I've been to one of your live shows, or I saw you on TV, or like your videos on IG, TikTok, yada, yada. That is all great. But it feels like an extra hug when y'all say y'all listen and watch Ashley Please, because this is like my most unhinged version of me, but just talking about civics in a way that is palatable, that it feels like we're just in the conversation. And to be quite honest, this is only like 15% of my unhingedness. I debate on how much to give to y'all every week, but we're working on it. I'm going to give it in small doses, but then I don't want to get hate mail, because I probably would get hate mail if y'all knew how really unhinged I was. But I digress. Thank y'all for tuning in this week. So for this episode, my ending point is the Chicago mayoral election. My starting point is some of the current events and news headlines I have seen that have made me literally drop my jaw. Okay? In no particular order and no extensive feedback, I'm just going to share a few headlines that made me say, WTF. Okay? Great chat. So the first one is this, the U.S. carried out its 10th consecutive night of airstrikes against Iranian targets. Here's the preface to that. When I was younger, they used to always talk about, like, if you want to run for office, you have to be this way, you have to be this way. And generally speaking, across the board, a lot of things have changed. Like, I know tattoos weren't a thing for, even preachers. Preachers are hella tatted, let alone politicians. I'm sure people had tattoos. They just weren't visible. 12 tattoos. That was probably TMI. My point is, there were some things that people were staunchly against if you considered running for office, right? The way you talk, the way you carry yourself, the way you dress, right? There has to be a certain image. All of that went out the window for me when President Trump got elected. There's no way you can require all this politically correctness, which stems from whiteness, when you have a man who has said, grab them by the P, who looks the way he looks, who talks the way he talks, and that has achieved this office with no political experience. The standard is low. Not saying that you want politicians that are trash, because Zoran, shout out to my mayor, second mayor in New York. He's pretty bomb. I think the man is Batman. But you got people like him that are proving that politicians don't have to be perfect. They don't have to have this extensive politically encouraged background to do the job for the people. Then you have Trump, who is a complete dumpster fire, who has proven to me and probably to everybody else, if you want to be somebody, if you want to go somewhere, you better wake up and pay attention. Shout out to Sister 82 in the choir saying, okay, so point in saying all of that, hearing about Iran and these airstrikes that are happening, I just feel like it is a direct contradiction to the headlines we listen to, right? Like Trump's like, Iran, they want a deal. They really want a big deal, a deal that nobody has ever seen before. We're going to do it. And it doesn't happen. And then you see things like this. So it makes me wonder, are you exaggerating or are you lying? I'm going to go with the latter, because I remember the last time Trump has told the truth. Another thing that is alarming, these wildfires that are happening across the country, but in Canada that has impacted the smoke of some of the northern states, Illinois, Michigan, New York, of a few. New York is technically east, but some of the states that are either connected to Canada or very close to. I have seen people on threads and social media in general blame Canada for the wildfires. Y'all, y'all. I even had somebody tell me on threads, don't be a pick me, because I reposted something that said, like, here's the start of it. Somebody posted something with the Canada wildfires article and said, F you Canada. I think it was a sign that said, F you Canada, as if Canada woke up and said, you know what? You know what we need today? Wildfires. Anyway, they posted that. I reposted it. Like, I'm embarrassed as an American because not only is Canada our neighbor, and usually we don't have problems with Canada pre-Trump. You would think your neighbors would be like, hey, there's a fire. You need resources to help put it out. Not these idiots that are like, yeah, F Canada, get your smoke together. Like, how can we help you? That headline slash social media engagement was very interesting because I think it just showed how wild people are. No pun intended. Wildfires, wild, get it? But just how the character of people in this country and how that has been exacerbated due to President Trump. People are more racist. People are more vocal. People are more absurd due to the rhetoric coming out of the White House. It also highlighted to me, due to me going outside and my throat stinging, I had a relative of mine say, oh, it's not that bad, Ash, and go outside and started coughing. Yeah, we're in a climate crisis, and I am not a scientist. However, I would be an actual scientist if I wasn't a political scientist. We are approaching the point where we have to do something about climate. I think we've actually reached that point, but I think we have a limited window that we can still act. But if we do not act, there will be more floods, flash floods. Illinois, I feel like, has flooded more in the past 3 to 5 years than it has my entire life. The fact that the reservoir between Dalton, or out there by Dalton, the south suburbs for those that are not in Illinois, close to South Holland, that was filled up to 94%, and there were still more storms coming. And according to an article I read, it will take a few months for that to clear out. And we'll still have storms. You know, it's that type of stuff that makes me think, like, why haven't people taken climate seriously? And I get some things aren't tied to climate, like tornadoes are necessarily tied to climate. But if you go to the root of some of these issues, i.e., having a warmer planet causes harm to more than just us, but other countries, other impacts in different ways. But I digress. That was another standout to me, the climate emergency that we are now entering into. I am not a pessimist, but if I had to make a prediction, I would say over the next 10 years, we are going to experience some wild climate behavior. That's why I'm building a bunker. What's another headline that like made my mouth drop? Trump basically declared, I do declare that Benjamin Netanyahu, which is Israel's prime minister, when he comes to New York, will not be arrested. How do you declare that? You're not a king, Trump. What are we talking about here? And Benjamin Netanyahu, Yahoo! That man is a criminal. He's a war criminal. He's an international war criminal. That man should be arrested because what's happening is genocide. I said what I said. Sorry. What else I got? Student loan defaults hit records high in wake of COVID tied payment pause. No shit, Sherlock. What did we did we think people don't have money for gas, i.e. Willie Wilson giving out gas here and groceries in Chicago? People are making decisions between paying their light bill and their gas bill. You think people have money for student loan payments. Not only that, student loan payments that have now removed some of the payment plans from COVID that were actually helping students and families afford student loans. Fun fact, some people were able to afford houses during 2020 and 2021 because they paused the impact of student loans on your credit. You think removing some of those protections will enable people to pay in this economy? Y'all are nuts. Y'all are absolutely 100% insane. No duh. I think it's also 1 in 5 people in California have went into default with their student loan payments. That doesn't shock me. If that shocks anybody, y'all are crazy. We are damn near in a recession and basically in war with Iran. Let's get into the main topic for today, the 2027 Chicago mayoral race. We are months away, probably, from everybody announcing that will run in this race. And while we don't have everybody that has announced, we do have a few people. And we also have campaign finance reports, which are important because I tell a story that I'm going to get into in a second. But this is a race that every Chicagoan, in my opinion, should pay attention to. So we're going to break down who's running, who's thinking about running, who's raising money, and why one number stands above everything else. Okay, so far, who's in the race and who's expected to be in the race? We have Mayor Brandon Johnson, who has not officially announced a re-election campaign. Illinois Secretary of State Alexi Giulianis, which is widely expected to run but has not officially announced. We have U.S. Stanton, George Cardenas, Matt Brewer. This will probably become an even larger field as we enter petition filing, which is later this year, closes later this year. But I want to take a moment to talk about campaign reports because I mentioned they tell a story. They do. Campaign reports give you information to who has donated to someone's campaign. So it tells the story about the supporters, of how much money they have to impact the race and why they may be successful in winning said race. So, for an example, it tells us who believes in a candidate, who has institutional support, who has wealthy donors, who has organized labor, who can hire staff, who can knock on doors, and ultimately, who can reach voters at scale. I'm going to say that again. Campaign finance reports tell the story, but they also indicate who can reach voters at scale. And that's important because the more money you have, and if you use it correctly, you can reach voters more. So that's by door, that's by social media or social media ads, marketing, television, the pamphlets y'all get in the mail, the flyers, the door hangers, all of those things cost hella money, even to pay the people to knock on the door. Now there was a time, I ain't never did it. There was a time where people would knock on doors for free. We're in a real time society. And I think people that believe in candidates surely still do that. But it is a rough economy. And if you have people that's already working 2 jobs or their schedule is tight, you got to be able to fund people to knock on your doors consistently. Knock on doors consistently. Do paid, phone banking consistently. That's important too. Also, though all those things are important, money does not guarantee anybody victory. You can be, I was gonna say you can be trash and still win, but we have that example, Donald Trump. But it does determine whether or not you can reach all the people in the way that I just named. So here are the numbers that most people are talking about that you'll see on social media or in like some political inclined newspapers, i.e. Cat Facts or Political, all that stuff. Alexis Giulianis has 22 million. This man hasn't even announced he's running yet. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Greek money and wealth in that bucket. I haven't really explored all of his finances, but 22 million available in campaign funds. Our mayor, our current mayor, who is the incumbent is the person that was already holding the office, has about 813,000. 22 million versus 813,000. That's not just a fundraising advantage. That's a entirely different league. And I bring that up to say usually the mayoral candidate is in good shape financially before announcing. And 813,000 is not the best, especially when you have people that are running against you that have 22 million. I'm going to end with saying this. I do believe the mayor's current approval ratings are low. I even think they are historically low for a Chicago incumbent at this time. However, I don't believe we should count Mayor Brandon out for a few reasons, but some of the technical reasons at least. If there is a crowded field, that may force us into a runoff. Actually, we're probably going to a runoff. So if you have a field of candidates that folks don't know, they don't have name ID, or they haven't proven themselves to do a better job than the current mayor, the likelihood of the current incumbent winning is likely. Now, Chicago is a very interesting city. People have a lot of opinions. We are the most segregated city in America, if you ask me. But I do think if people actually go outside and talk to voters and hear what they have to say, I think it's different than what we hear online. I've asked people, and just in regular conversation, why they don't support Mayor Brandon Johnson. And some people got a list like boom, 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 respect. Other people are not able to fully explain or articulate what they're trying to say. Then you got people like Chicago Red who have some of the right ideas of why people are frustrated, but their responses and their answers are not commendable. That was the nicest way I could put that. So I would say have conversations with your family, your friends about this mayoral race. And that's my action. My call to action for you guys to do this week is either have these conversations with your family, your friends, or research Mayor Brandon Johnson, some of the things that he has done, or research some of these candidates that are coming into the race. If you're familiar with what Brandon's platform is and you're decided that you will support him, cool, still research. If you decided that you will not support the mayor, go research some of these other candidates and their platforms if they're out there. And if they don't have platforms that are out there, go see their previous record. Google these folks that are going to represent you, that this one person is going to represent you for the next 4 years. This week's Ashley Please Award goes to Spain. Yep, the entire country, not just for defeating Argentina, who is known to be a racist country, but also for booing President Trump as he came out the stadium. Y'all, I saw this happen in real time, but Trump was so happy to be there. He even did his little award dance on stage. I think the best part of this was Spain cropping Trump out of their World Cup picture. He tried to photobomb Spain while taking this picture. It was great. It was great to see. And this week, I am so glad to award Spain with the Ashley Please Award. Let's clap it up for them. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Next week, we'll get more back into the federal news. And this is Ashley Munson. And as always, do something with what you learn.